The sharp scent of lemon polish hits me first, mingling with the soft warmth of sunlight spilling through the wide windows. Pip's little paws tap nervously on the linoleum, a quiet rhythm that makes my chest tighten. I hold his leash a little tighter, remembering the nurse's words from earlier. Pets aren't allowed here. My heart sinks. Pip isn't just a dog. He's the last piece of home I have left, the companion who's carried me through grief I'm still learning to bear. From across the room, Mrs. Alvarez watches me. She doesn't say a word, but her eyes, bright, knowing, make me feel less alone. There's something in the way she tilts her head, almost as if she's silently telling me, there might be a way to keep him. And for the first time since I arrived, I feel a spark of hope. Have you ever had to protect something you love, even when everyone insists it's impossible? Stay with me to see how a little dog, a few determined neighbors, and the courage to stand quietly yet firmly can turn fear into hope and help reclaim not just a pet, but a sense of dignity, community, and belonging. I carried Pip through the double doors of Willow Gardens on a Tuesday morning, his warm weight pressed against my ribs like a heartbeat I wasn't ready to let go of. The lobby smelled like bleach and something floral, artificial, the kind of scent that tries too hard to be comforting. Everything was beige. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige upholstered chairs arranged in conversational clusters that looked like they'd never hosted an actual conversation. The overhead lights hummed, sterile and relentless. My daughter had driven me here, her hands tight on the wheel the whole way, talking too brightly about amenities and meal plans. She'd left 10 minutes ago, promising to call tonight, her eyes red-rimmed. I think we were both relieved when she finally pulled away. I stood there in the middle of that lobby, clutching my purse in one hand and Pip in the other, feeling smaller than I had in years. Pip shifted against me, his nose cold through my cardigan. I could feel his little body trembling. Or maybe that was me. "Mrs. Thornton?" The voice came from behind the reception desk. A woman in navy scrubs stood there, clipboard in hand, her expression polite but brisk. She was maybe mid-40s, hair pulled back tight, the kind of efficiency that didn't leave room for small talk. "Yes," I said, my voice thinner than I intended. She came around the desk, her sneakers silent on the carpet. "I'm Nurse Collins. I'll be showing you to your room and going over the facility guidelines." Her gaze dropped to Pip, and something shifted in her face. Not cruel exactly, just firm. "I see you've brought a pet." I pulled Pip a little closer. "This is Pip. He's very well behaved. He won't be any trouble." Nurse Collins shook her head, already reaching for a sheet on her clipboard. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thornton, but pets aren't allowed at Willow Gardens. It's clearly stated in the admission packet. Animals pose sanitation concerns, allergy risks, and liability issues for other residents." The words hit me like cold water. I'd read that packet, skimmed it anyway, but I suppose I'd let myself believe there would be exceptions, that someone would understand. "But he's all I have left," I said, and hated how small I sounded, how desperate. She softened slightly, but her tone didn't waver. "I understand this is difficult, but the rules are in place for everyone's safety. You'll need to make other arrangements for him. A family member, perhaps, or a trusted friend." Pip nuzzled into my neck, his breath warm against my skin. I thought of Tom, how he'd found this scruffy little terrier wandering behind the hardware store 7 years ago, brought him home with that crooked grin I'd fallen for 56 years earlier. "Look what followed me," he'd said. Pip had been ours ever since. And now Tom was gone, And they wanted to take this too? I couldn't answer her. My throat had closed up entirely. Nurse Collins glanced toward the common room, where I could see figures in armchairs, some reading, some staring at a television mounted on the wall. "Let's get you settled for now," she said, a little gentler. "But we'll need to resolve this by the end of the week." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As we walked down the hallway, long beige, lined with numbered doors, I felt eyes on me. Residents in the common room, watching as I passed. An older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. A man in a cardigan, his newspaper forgotten in his lap. I wondered what they saw. A frightened old woman clutching a dog she couldn't keep. Pip licked my chin, and I held him tighter. The next morning, Nurse Collins came to my door with a folder and that same apologetic but firm expression. She sat in the chair by the window, my chair, I already thought of it, and laid out the options like she was discussing lunch preferences. "We've contacted a few local boarding facilities," she said, sliding a printed list across the small table. "This one has excellent reviews, and they offer long-term care packages. Your daughter mentioned she might be able to visit him regularly." I stared at the paper, the names blurred together. Paws and Whiskers Boarding. Happy Tales Pet Resort. As if Pip would be on vacation instead of abandoned. "I understand this isn't easy," Nurse Collins continued, "but Willow Gardens has to maintain standards for all residents. Allergies, sanitation protocols, insurance liability. I heard you the first time," I said quietly. She paused, studying me. "Mrs. Thornton, I know you're adjusting to a lot of changes, but the rules exist for good reasons." After she left, I sat there holding that list, my hands shaking. For one wild moment, I considered packing my single suitcase and leaving. Going where? Back to the house we'd sold? My daughter's cramped apartment with the narrow stairs I could barely manage anymore. I'd fallen twice in the last 6 months. That's why I was here in the first place. The truth settled over me like a blanket I couldn't kick off. I had nowhere else to go. That evening, I started keeping Pip hidden. I fashioned a little nest for him in the closet, using my old bathrobe, left the door cracked so he could breathe. He didn't understand why he couldn't roam freely anymore, kept looking up at me with those dark, confused eyes. I felt like a criminal in my own room. The early morning walks became our routine. I'd wake at 5:30, before most of the staff arrived for the day shift, and slip down the back stairwell with Pip tucked inside my cardigan. The courtyard was small but lovely. A few benches, some rose bushes that needed deadheading, a fountain that didn't run anymore. We'd circle it twice, Pip sniffing every corner, me glancing over my shoulder like a teenager sneaking out after curfew. On the third morning, I wasn't alone. Mrs. Alvarez sat on one of the benches, wrapped in a burgundy shawl despite the mild weather. She was maybe mid-70s, with iron-grey hair and eyes that missed nothing. I'd seen her in the dining room, usually holding court at a corner table, her voice sharp enough to cut through the cafeteria chatter. "Pretty dog," she said as I passed. I froze. Pip's head poked out from my cardigan, his ears perked. "He's very quiet," I managed. She didn't look at me directly, just sipped from a travel mug. "I had a parakeet once, Harold. They said birds weren't allowed either." She paused. "Said." My pulse quickened. "What happened to Harold?" "Oh, he's still here." She smiled faintly, eyes on the fountain. "In my room. Funny how the maintenance staff never mentions him when they come to fix the radiator. I give them cookies, homemade. People overlook a lot when you give them cookies." I stood there, uncertain whether she was offering advice or simply making conversation. Mrs. Alvarez finally met my gaze. Rules are rules, Mrs. Thornton, but sometimes rules are really just suggestions for people who don't know how to ask the right questions. She stood, gathering her shawl. 5:30 is a good time for walks. Quiet, fewer eyes. She walked past me toward the building, then paused. Room 204, if you ever want to meet Harold. I'm usually up. I watched her disappear inside, Pip warm against my chest. Over the next week, I became a spy in my own home. I learned the staff schedules by heart. Nurse Collins arrived at 7 sharp, always stopping by the nurses' station first for coffee and the shift report. The morning aide, a young woman named Keisha, did her rounds starting with the east wing. I was west, which gave me an extra 15 minutes. The housekeeping cart rattled down the hall every Tuesday and Thursday at 9, the wheels squeaking long before Mrs. Patel appeared. I kept Pip's food in a decorative tin labeled tea biscuits on my kitchenette counter. His water bowl lived inside the bathroom cabinet, pulled out only when I was certain no one would knock. I'd bought a small portable litter pad, technically for dogs recovering from surgery, and hidden it under the bed. The whole setup felt absurd, like I was running a speakeasy for a 7-pound terrier. But it worked. Pip adjusted faster than I expected. He learned to stay quiet during the day, curling up on his closet bed or tucked beside me on the armchair. When footsteps passed in the hall, his ears would prick, but he wouldn't bark. Smart boy. He'd always been intuitive, reading my moods better than most people. Now he seemed to understand that our life here depended on invisibility. The morning walks became my anchor, 5:30, every day, down the back stairs. Mrs. Alvarez joined us twice more, never saying much, just sitting on her bench with that travel mug and watching the sky lighten. Once she brought a bag of treats, actual dog treats, not people cookies, and left them on the bench beside me without comment. I started carrying a notebook with me to the courtyard. It was one of those composition books with the black and white speckled cover, the kind David used to use for his carpentry sketches. I'd found it in a box of his things I'd brought to Willow Gardens, still blank except for a shopping list on the first page written in his blocky handwriting. Sandpaper, wood glue, hinges. I couldn't bring myself to tear that page out, so I started writing on page 2. October 10th. 3 weeks since David died, 2 weeks since I moved here. The nurse wants Pip gone by Friday. My hand shook as I wrote, the morning air cool enough that I could see my breath. I don't know what I'm doing. Hiding him feels ridiculous. I'm 78 years old, sneaking around like a teenager. But I can't lose him. Not yet. He's all I have left of our morning routines, of waking up and having someone need me. David always said I was stubborn. He meant it as a compliment. Pip nosed at my ankle, ready to explore. I set the notebook aside and watched him investigate a patch of clover near the fountain. Such a small thing, really. A dog. 7 pounds of fur and devotion. But when you've lost everything else, small things become everything. October 12th. Mrs. Alvarez told me about Harold the parakeet. I'm starting to think I'm not the only one here breaking rules. Maybe that's what this place really is. A collection of people finding ways to hold on to the pieces of themselves that don't fit the brochure. October 14th. Keisha almost caught us this morning. She came down the hall early and I had to scoop Pip into the bathroom and turn on the shower to cover any sounds. She knocked, asked if I was all right. I said I was fine, just washing up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it through the door. When she left, I sat on the edge of the tub and cried. Not from fear, from anger. Why should I have to hide? Why should loving something be against the rules? I read that entry back to myself in the courtyard. Pip asleep across my feet. Because the truth was, I wasn't just afraid of losing Pip. I was afraid of losing the last bit of control I had over my own life. Someone else chose my meals, my room, my daily schedule. Someone else decided when activities happened, what temperature to keep the thermostat, whether the television in the common room played news or game shows. Pip was mine. My choice, my responsibility. And I'd be damned if I'd let them take that away without a fight. I first noticed Mr. Chen during breakfast on a Tuesday. He sat alone at a corner table, eating oatmeal with measured spoonfuls while reading his precisely folded newspaper. Everything about him was neat. Pressed shirt, combed white hair, reading glasses positioned just so. But what caught my attention wasn't his tidiness. It was the spiral notebook beside his coffee, and how he'd glance up every few minutes to watch the staff, then jot something down. I'd seen that look before. David gathering data for a complicated build. Mr. Chen caught me staring and nodded politely. The next morning, when I came down early with Pip hidden in my tote, he gestured to the empty chair across from him. I hesitated, but something in his calm expression suggested he already knew what I was carrying. "Good morning. Howard Chen, Unit 2B. Margaret Walsh, 1C. I know." He slid newspaper toward me. Dogs section has an article about therapy animals in senior facilities. Compelling arguments about health benefits. I stared at the paper, then at him. The nurse makes rounds at 6:15 on weekdays, he said. 6:30 on weekends. Second floor first, then the first, moving clockwise from the east wing. 12 minutes to complete her circuit. My hands gripped the table. Why are you telling me this? Because patterns are useful. He turned a page, revealing neat columns of times and observations. The administrator arrives 8:30 weekdays. She inspects common areas, but rarely visits rooms unless there's been a complaint. Housekeeping works Tuesday and Thursday mornings, starting at 9. They announce themselves and respect closed doors with privacy tags. You've been watching. I've been accounting. 42 years of documenting, observing, identifying inconsistencies. Old habits. I lowered my voice. What inconsistencies? Mr. Chen turned his notebook toward me. Pages filled with tiny handwriting. Dates, times, staff names, observations. Mrs. Rodriguez, microwave in room despite fire code. Staff aware, no action. Another, Mr. Patterson, family brings outside food weekly. Kitchen assists with storage. The rules aren't applied evenly, he said quietly. Some violations are ignored, others enforced strictly. It appears arbitrary, or rather, depends on who's breaking the rule and whether staff personally approves. I thought about Mrs. Alvarez's mention of Harold the parakeet, the microwave I'd seen in someone's window. So you're saying, if you understand the system, you can work within it, or around it. But you need documentation, evidence of inconsistency. That's how you build a case for exception. My heart beat faster. I'm not trying to sue anyone. No, but you're trying to keep something that matters. His eyes were kind behind those glasses. And you're not the only one who'd benefit from knowing which rules are actually rules and which are merely preferences. Pip shifted in my bag, nose pressing against canvas. Mr. Chen's gaze dropped to the tote, then back to my face. 6:15, every weekday. You have time. I stood, bag clutched tight. Why are you helping me? Mr. Chen considered the question. Because I spent my career making numbers line up properly, finding errors, correcting imbalances. I'm too old to stop now. He sipped his coffee. And because watching people follow unfair rules without question has always bothered me considerably. He returned to his newspaper, conversation over. I walked toward the exit, thoughts spinning, documentation, patterns, evidence. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. The first treat appeared outside my door Thursday morning. A cellophane bag of bacon-flavored dog biscuits, tied with yellow yarn. No note, just sitting on my welcome mat like a tiny rebellion. I picked it up, heart hammering, and glanced down the hallway. Empty. But I felt watched, not threateningly. With curiosity, maybe, or solidarity. Someone knows, I whispered to Pip. Someone's on our side. 2 days later, another gift. A tennis ball tucked by my door. Beneath it, a folded index card. For the little gentleman. Keep going. The shaky handwriting belonged to Mrs. Rodriguez. I recognized it from the lobby sign-in sheet. They weren't just watching anymore. They were choosing sides. The nurse noticed the change during Friday rounds. I'd grown bolder, walking Pip through the first-floor hallway mid-morning, nodding to residents who smiled. Still careful, but no longer cowering like a criminal. Mrs. Walsh, a word, please. I turned, Pip's leash wrapped firmly around my hand. Of course, she lowered her voice. I've asked you repeatedly to make arrangements for that animal. You're putting me in a difficult position. I understand that's challenging for you. Her jaw tightened. This isn't about challenging. It's about policy, safety. What if someone's allergic? What if someone trips? Has anyone complained? That's not the point. It seems relevant. If the policy protects residents, and residents aren't concerned, then who exactly is being protected? Color rose in her cheeks. I'm trying to be patient. Rules exist for everyone's benefit, not just yours. I agree completely, and I'm grateful for your patience. She studied me, searching for sarcasm. I gave her steady, polite attention. Finally, she exhaled. I'm documenting this conversation. If there's an incident, any incident, the consequences will be immediate. She walked away, clipboard clutched like armor. Mr. Chen appeared from the library doorway. Well handled? Was it? I just made things worse. No, you established you're reasonable and aware of her concerns. Strategic. He made a note. And she revealed something important. She's documenting because she's uncertain. If she had full authority, she'd simply act. I don't know how long I can keep this up. You're not alone. He gestured toward the hallway. Count the witnesses. That afternoon, I took Pip to the courtyard for the first time in daylight. The October air was crisp, smelling of dried leaves and distant wood smoke. Reminded me of bonfires David used to build, flames crackling while we talked about nothing important. Pip trotted ahead, exploring the clipped grass. I sat beneath a maple tree, watching him investigate a butterfly. Slowly, residents began appearing. Mrs. Alvarez emerged first, settling onto the opposite bench with exaggerated nonchalance. She didn't speak, just worked yarn into intricate patterns, but her presence felt intentional. Then Mr. Chen, newspaper under his arm. He chose a spot near the fountain. Mrs. Rodriguez wheeled herself through the door next, parking in a sunny patch. She smiled at Pip and unwrapped hard candy. 3 more residents followed. Some pretended to read. Others simply sat, faces toward the autumn sun. Nobody spoke about why they were there. But I knew. Pip bounded to Mrs. Rodriguez, tail wagging. She laughed and scratched his ears. "Good boy," she murmured. Something cracked open in my chest. Not breaking, expanding. These strangers were choosing to stand with me, not loudly, just there. The nurse appeared at the courtyard window. I met her gaze and didn't look away. Around me, residents continued their quiet routines, knitting, reading, resting. But their message was clear. Margaret wasn't alone anymore, and that changed everything. The routines started with Mrs. Alvarez's insistence on coffee. 6:30, courtyard, she'd announced Monday, tapping my door with her cane. "Bring the gentleman." "It's barely light out." "Exactly. Nurse doesn't arrive until 7. Her smile was pure mischief. Early bird gets the rebellion. Tuesday morning found me bundled in my cardigan, Pip trotting beside me, meeting Mrs. Alvarez beneath the maple tree with terrible instant coffee and chipped mugs. "This tastes like burned cardboard," I said. "Builds character." She watched Pip investigate fallen leaves. My husband said the best conversations happen before sunrise. Less noise, more truth. Wednesday, Mr. Chen joined us with a proper coffee press and decent beans. "If we're making this routine go," he said, "we should do it properly." By Thursday, we'd established rhythm. Mrs. Alvarez brought cups. Mr. Chen handled coffee. I supplied conversation, memories about David I'd kept locked away since he'd died. He loved morning. I told them. Used to wake me before sunrise to watch birds. Drove me crazy then. Now I'd give anything for one more. Mr. Chen poured refills. My wife gardened at dawn, said vegetables tasted better with dew still clinging. The coffee ritual grew. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared Friday with homemade biscuits. She didn't speak much, stroke had tangled her words, but smiled when Pip rested his chin on her wheelchair. Saturday brought Mr. Patterson, who taught Pip to retrieve tennis balls, laughing when the terrier refused to return them. "Stubborn thing," he said fondly. "Like his owner," Mrs. Alvarez muttered. The afternoon routine formed gradually. I brought Pip to the common room after lunch. The television blared unwatched. Residents sat scattered, separate islands. Pip hopped onto the sofa beside Mrs. Kim, who hadn't spoken in weeks. She stiffened, then slowly stroked his ears. "Soft," she whispered. I sat nearby, giving space. "His name's Pip." Mr. Chen settled with his crossword. Mrs. Alvarez claimed the recliner, knitting needles, clicking. We didn't announce what we were doing, just occupied the space together. Other residents drifted over. Some talked to Pip. Others simply sat closer, drawn by quiet companionship. Mrs. Rodriguez told stories about Puerto Rico. Mr. Patterson shared postal adventures. I talked about David less cautiously, his off-key singing, terrible jokes, how he'd held my hand during scary movies. Grief felt lighter when shared. By the second week, we'd developed a full calendar. Morning coffee, afternoon gatherings, evening walks. Mrs. Alvarez brought cards Tuesday nights. Mr. Chen organized book discussions Thursdays, though mostly we talked about whatever mattered. Mr. Davis started leaving dog treats outside my door with notes. For services rendered. Mrs. Kim began drawing Pip in pencil, taping sketches to the bulletin board. Even distant residents watched from doorways, nodding encouragement. We were building something steady. The nurse noticed, of course. She'd appear during coffee mornings, clipboard ready, finding nothing technically rule-breaking. "You're testing my patience," she told me Thursday. "We're having coffee. Would you like a cup?" Her mouth thinned. She walked away. Mr. Chen refilled my mug. She's documenting everything, building a case. Let her. Mrs. Alvarez's needles never paused. We're documenting too. Every smile. Every resident who's less lonely because of that dog. She was right. We were creating our own evidence. Proof that rules designed for safety prevented healing. I scratched Pip's ears, feeling morning sun warm my shoulders. For the first time since David died, I wasn't just surviving. I was living, and I wasn't doing it alone. The surveillance started subtly. Staff appeared during our morning coffee, not just the nurse, but aides I'd never seen before. They lingered by doorways, noting times in tablets, watching Pip with professional detachment. They're logging patterns, Mr. Chen said quietly Wednesday. Building. Documentation. Mrs. Alvarez sipped her coffee, unbothered. Let them log. We're not breaking rules during morning coffee. Dogs aren't forbidden in the courtyard. Yet, I said. The weight of that word hung heavy. By Thursday, staff began asking questions. Mrs. Thompson, I see you frequently outdoors at 6:30, an aide said, blocking my path to the courtyard. Is there a particular reason? I enjoy fresh air. With a dog that isn't registered with the facility? My heart hammered. I'm exploring my options. She made a note. The administrator would like to schedule a meeting. Fear tasted metallic. Would you risk everything for something you loved, even knowing the odds were stacked? Mr. Chen called it the rotation strategy. We adjust timing daily, he explained over lunch, voice low. Different routes, different schedules, make surveillance harder. He'd drawn a chart, Willow Gardens mapped with staff shift changes, blind spots, optimal walking times. 6:15 Monday, 7:05 Tuesday, 5:40 Wednesday, he said. Random enough to complicate their documentation. Mrs. Alvarez studied the chart. You missed the loading dock. Staff rarely check between deliveries. And the meditation garden, Mrs. Rodriguez added quietly. No cameras. I stared at them, this collection of supposedly passive seniors, plotting like strategists. You've done this before, I said. Mrs. Alvarez smiled. Mr. Chen smuggled his wife's cat in for 3 months before she passed. We learned a few things. Mr. Chen's expression softened with old grief. She needed her companion. Rules didn't account for that. Something fierce bloomed in my chest. Gratitude mixed with determination. We weren't just hiding Pip. We were refusing to be diminished. The distraction tactics started Friday. Mrs. Rodriguez positioned herself near the nurse's station during my morning walk, asking endless questions about medication schedules. But why this pill before breakfast? And this one after? The nurse's patience wore thin, explaining while I slipped past with Pip. Mr. Patterson developed a sudden fascination with maintenance issues, reporting wobbly railing and flickering lights that required staff attention elsewhere. Mrs. Kim began painting in the common room, elaborate watercolors that drew aides into conversations while Pip napped beneath her wheelchair. We became a coordinated effort, each resident contributing small diversions. But the pressure intensified. Staff started checking my room during meals. They questioned other residents about Pip's presence. The nurse appeared at odd hours, clipboard ready. Mrs. Thompson, we need to discuss your compliance, she said Monday evening. I'm attending all activities, taking medications, following meal schedules. You're keeping an unauthorized animal. I'm exploring whether accommodations are possible. Her jaw tightened. The administrator has scheduled a meeting for Thursday, 9 a.m. This conversation is mandatory. After she left, I sat on my bed, Pip curled against my leg, and felt the weight of looming consequences. They could evict me, transfer me somewhere stricter, ban Pip permanently. I thought about David, how he'd faced his cancer diagnosis with quiet courage, not denying fear, but refusing to let it make his decisions. "We'll face Thursday when it comes," I whispered to Pip. A note slid under my door. Mrs. Alvarez's handwriting. "Meeting Thursday, 8 a.m. Common room. Come prepared." Wednesday evening, 12 residents gathered quietly. Mr. Chen distributed typed pages, testimonials about Pip's presence, how he'd coaxed words from Mrs. Kim, calmed Mr. Davis during panic attacks, given structure to lonely days. "Evidence," Mr. Chen said, "documented observations with dates and specifics." Mrs. Rodriguez handed me photographs, Pip with residents, smiles genuine and warm. "They want documentation," Mrs. Alvarez said. "We'll give them documentation." I looked at faces surrounding me, people who'd been strangers 3 weeks ago, now risking reprimand to stand beside me. "If this backfires," I started. "It won't," Mr. Patterson interrupted, "because we're not asking permission anymore. We're demanding they listen." The meeting was 13 hours away. I held Pip close, feeling his steady heartbeat against my palm, and wondered if courage was enough when institutions held all the power. My daughter's voice carried that careful tone, the one she used when delivering bad news she'd already decided was right. "Mum, we're just worried about you." Claire sat across from me in my small room, her husband Tom standing by the window. They'd driven 3 hours to after the facility called them about compliance issues. "I'm fine," I said. Pip dozed in my lap, oblivious to the tension. "You're violating facility rules." Tom crossed his arms. "That puts you at risk." "Pip isn't a risk. That's not what we mean." Claire leaned forward. "If something happens, if he bites someone, if there's an accident, you could be held liable. We could be held liable." The word hung there. Liable. Not comfort, not companion, not love, just legal exposure. "He's never bitten anyone," I said quietly. "But he could." Claire's eyes held genuine concern mixed with something harder. "Mom, you're 78. You need support, not complications." Support. As if Pip complicated rather than sustained me. I remembered Claire at 7, begging for a puppy, promising she'd walk it every day. David and I had laughed at her earnest negotiation tactics. We'd gotten her that puppy. Did she remember what unconditional love felt like? "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though I already knew. Tom cleared his throat. "There's a very reputable shelter nearby. They screen adoptive families carefully. Pip would go somewhere safe." Safe. Without me. Without the person he'd slept beside for 4 years, through David's illness and my grief. "He's not going to a shelter," I said. "Then we need to find you a different facility." Claire pulled out her phone. "One that allows pets. There are options, but they're more expensive and farther from us. Farther from family who visited twice a year." The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm staying here," I said. "Why?" Claire's frustration surfaced. "Why make this harder than it needs to be?" Because I'd already given up my house, my independence, my routines. Because Pip was the last piece of David I could hold. Because surrender felt like dying by degrees. "He matters to me," I said simply. We matter too. Claire's voice cracked slightly. We're trying to protect you. From what? From caring about something? From making my own choices? A soft knock interrupted us. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the doorway, holding a covered dish. Forgive the intrusion. I brought Margaret some soup. Claire straightened. We're having a family conversation. Of course. Mrs. Alvarez set the dish down, then paused. Your mother is remarkable, you know. She's brought this community together in ways we desperately needed. Tom frowned. By breaking rules. By reminding us we're still people. Mrs. Alvarez met his gaze calmly. With agency. With needs that policies don't always accommodate. She left before they could respond. Through my small window, I could see Mr. Chen walking the courtyard path, Mr. Patterson beside him. They glanced toward my room, not curious, but watchful, supporting. Mom, Claire's voice softened. We just want what's best. But best according to whom? Their convenience? The facility's liability concerns? Some abstract notion of appropriate behavior for elderly women who should sit quietly and comply. I stroked Pip's soft fur, feeling his warmth against my legs. David had taught me something during his final months, that you can love people deeply while still choosing your own path. That respect flows both ways, even between parent and child. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully, but I'm not surrendering Pip, and I'm not leaving Willow Gardens. Claire and Tom exchanged glances, that wordless marital communication that decided my fate without including me. Then you're on your own if there are legal consequences, Tom said flatly. The words stung, but I'd expected them. I understand, I said. After they left, I sat holding Pip, watching evening shadows lengthen across the courtyard. A note slid under my door. Mr. Chen's precise handwriting. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. We stand together. I knew something was wrong when Pip didn't touch his breakfast. He lay curled on his cushion, breathing shallow and quick. His nose felt hot and dry. When I whispered to him, he whimpered, a sound I'd never heard before. Panic squeezed my chest. I needed a vet. Now. I searched for the nearest clinic, fingers shaking. Valley Pet Emergency, 3 miles away. Then I stopped. How would I get there? I couldn't drive, hadn't since the accident. The facility only offered transportation for scheduled medical appointments and only for residents, not pets. A knock interrupted my panic. Mrs. Alvarez stood there, purse over her shoulder. I heard Pip crying. What's happening? He's sick. I need a vet, but I can't. Give me 5 minutes. She disappeared. I wrapped Pip in his blanket. He felt smaller somehow, diminished by illness. You can't leave me too, I thought. Mrs. Alvarez returned with Mr. Chen and his clipboard. Valley Pet Emergency opens at 7, he announced. It's 6:45. My nephew drives rideshare, Mrs. Alvarez said. He owes me favors. The facility requires notice for scheduled trips, Mr. Chen added, but not emergencies. You can leave independently with proper transportation. I stared. They'd mobilized faster than my own children. What about sign out? State your destination at the front desk, that's all. Mr. Chen's tone was firm. You're a resident, not a prisoner. Mrs. Alvarez's phone buzzed. Carlos is 12 minutes away. I'll come with you, she said, reading my face. I'll handle the paperwork, Mr. Chen added. If anyone questions your departure, they'll deal with me. Something warm bloomed in my chest. These people, barely strangers weeks ago, were circling around me like family should, the kind that showed up. We moved through quiet hallways toward the lobby. Mr. Patterson spotted us and nodded, a small gesture of solidarity. A young aide looked up as we approached. "I need to sign out," I said, keeping my voice steady. She glanced at the bundle in my arms, then at my escorts. "Where are you going?" "Emergency veterinary appointment." Mr. Chen slid a form across. "Per Section 4.2, autonomous departure requires only destination documentation." "I should check with—" "There's nothing to check. Mrs. Sullivan is exercising her right to independent mobility. Please provide the sign-out sheet." The aide hesitated, then pulled out a clipboard. I signed my name, wrote the destination, estimated noon return. My hand shook, but I managed. Outside, morning air bit cold. Pip stirred in the blanket and I held him closer. "Carlos is here," Mrs. Alvarez said. A blue sedan stopped. A young man with Mrs. Alvarez's eyes leaned out. "Tia, what's the emergency?" "We need the vet." Mrs. Alvarez opened the door. "Wait while they examine the dog, then bring us back." "That'll take hours." "You owe me for your poker debt." Carlos sighed. "Get in." I climbed in, cradling Pip. Mrs. Alvarez slid beside me while Mr. Chen took the front seat, clipboard like a shield. The car pulled away from Willow Gardens. Through the rear window, the facility shrank behind us, manicured lawns and tidy bricks suddenly smaller than it had felt from inside. Pip whimpered, and I stroked his ears. "Hang on, sweetheart," I whispered. "We're going to fix this." Valley Pet Emergency reeked of antiseptic and anxiety. The vet tech took Pip from my arms. "We'll examine him immediately." "Can I come?" "Not for initial assessment. We'll update you soon." I watched her carry Pip through swinging doors, his head turned toward me. Mrs. Alvarez guided me to plastic chairs. "Sit. Worrying standing doesn't help." Mr. Chen settled beside us, making notes. Timeline documented. Departure, 6:58. Arrival, 7:14. "You're recording everything?" I asked. Details matter when challenging policies. I twisted my hands, remembering David's last emergency room visit. The same helpless waiting, same fluorescent lights. Different outcome, I told myself. Pip's young, strong, but grief doesn't follow logic. It arrives uninvited whenever fear cracks the door. "Margaret," Mrs. Alvarez touched my arm. "He'll be fine." "You don't know that." "No, but you won't be fine if you spiral now. Breathe." I breathed, counted to 4. 20 minutes crawled past. The tech reappeared. "Mrs. Sullivan, Dr. Hayes will see you." We followed her back, me, Mrs. Alvarez, and Mr. Chen with his clipboard. Pip lay on the exam table, an IV taped to his tiny leg. Dr. Hayes gestured to chairs. "Pip's stable. Severe reaction to something he ingested. What might he have eaten?" "His regular food. Treats residents give him. Crackers. Cheese. Small things. One likely contained an allergen. We've flushed his system and started antihistamines. He should recover fully, but monitor what he eats." She paused. "You're at Willow Gardens?" "Yes." "Do they allow pets?" The question hung there, sharp and dangerous. "They're working on updated policies," Mrs. Alvarez said. Dr. Hayes studied us, 3 seniors and a small dog, and something softened. I grew up visiting my grandmother at assisted living. She wasn't allowed pets either. Broke her heart. It's not right, I whispered. No. Dr. Hayes scratched Pip's ear. If anyone at your facility questions his presence, tell them a veterinarian confirmed he poses no health risk and provides measurable therapeutic benefit. Mr. Chen's pen flew. Can you document that officially? I'll include it in the discharge summary. He's worth fighting for, Dr. Hayes said. I know. We returned just after 1. Pip dozed in my lap, groggy but breathing easier. The discharge papers felt like a shield, official documentation that my dog mattered. The desk aide looked up. How'd it go? He'll be fine. Good. Mrs. Sullivan, the administrator wants to see you in her office immediately. My stomach dropped. Mr. Chen straightened. Why? Just that it's important. Mrs. Alvarez exchanged a look with Mr. Chen. We'll come. She said just Mrs. Sullivan. Then she'll get all 3 of us, Mrs. Alvarez said flatly. We walked through hallways that suddenly felt hostile. Residents watched from doorways. The administrator's office sat at the end of the east wing, door ajar. I knocked. Come in. Miss Brennan sat behind a large desk, folder open before her. Mrs. Sullivan, please sit. I settled into the chair, Pip in my arms. Mrs. Alvarez and Mr. Chen flanked me. Miss Brennan's eyes flicked to them. I asked to speak with Mrs. Sullivan privately. We're her advocates, Mr. Chen said. Miss Brennan sighed. Fine. Mrs. Sullivan, I've received multiple reports regarding an unauthorized pet. This morning's unauthorized departure has forced the issue. It was an emergency. That doesn't change facility policy. She pulled out a document. No pets allowed, no exceptions. You signed acknowledgement during intake. Policies can be updated, Mr. Chen said, not without board approval, which takes months. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. I understand Pip is important to you, but rules exist for safety, cleanliness, and liability. I stroked Pip's head, feeling his heartbeat. What are you asking me to do? Miss Brennan met my eyes. You have 1 week to arrange Pip's permanent relocation. After that, if he's still here, we'll initiate your discharge from Willow Gardens. The words landed like stones. Choose, the dog or your home. You can't do that, Mrs. Alvarez said. I can and I will. Ms. Brennan closed the folder. I'm sorry, this is final. I walked back to my room in a daze, Pip drowsy against my chest. 1 week to surrender the last piece of David I had left. Mrs. Alvarez followed me in. We're not done. She said it was final. People say that before changing their minds. She pulled out her phone. Emergency meeting tonight. Mr. Chen appeared. I'm compiling documentation. Incident reports showing Pip calmed Mrs. Patterson. Visitor logs proving he reduces isolation. Kitchen staff mentioned residents eating better when he's around. That won't matter to Ms. Brennan. It will matter to someone, he said quietly. By 6 o'clock, 12 residents crowded the common room. Mrs. Alvarez stood at the front. Margaret faces discharge in 1 week if Pip stays. We need to act. Mrs. Patterson raised her hand. What can we do? Show them Pip isn't just Margaret's dog. He's ours. Written statements. Evidence they can't ignore. Mr. Chen distributed paper and pens. Write what Pip means to you. Be specific. I watched trembling hands begin to write. Mrs. Patterson wrote about the morning Pip sat beside her while she forgot her daughter's name. Mr. Rodriguez described teaching his grandson gentleness through petting Pip. Even Miss Huang scribbled about loneliness lessening. Each word felt like armor. "What about staff?" Mrs. Alvarez asked. "Rachel from dietary, Jamie the night aide, Mr. Chen." Chai noted names. "I'll approach them individually." "What about the board?" I asked. "Next session is in 3 weeks." "Too late." "Not if we request an emergency session. Policy allows resident petitions, needs 20% signatures, 19 shown total." "We've got 12 here," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Need 7 more." "I'll canvass tomorrow," Mr. Rodriguez offered. The planning continued. Who would speak, presentation order, evidence. These people barely knew me 3 months ago. Now they strategized like generals for a dog, for dignity. "You okay?" Mrs. Alvarez touched my shoulder. "I'm scared." "Good. Means it matters." "What if we fail?" "Then we fail trying. That's better than never fighting." That night I sat at my desk, Pip curled behind me. Mr. Chen asked for brief statements, 90 seconds maximum. I'd spent 78 years avoiding public speaking. Now I needed words carrying 53 years of marriage, 6 months of grief, 3 months of fragile hope. "Pip isn't just my dog," I wrote, then crossed it out. Too defensive. When David died, I lost everything. Too self-pitying. I crumpled the paper. Grief makes you small, shrinks your world until you're just surviving. Better, Pip reminds me I'm still here, still capable of caring beyond myself, still worthy of love that doesn't demand I prove my value. My hand shook. David used to edit my Christmas letters. "Get to the point, Maggie," I wrote faster. "Taking Pip doesn't just affect me, it tells every resident our emotional needs are secondary to policy. That grief expires. That needing assistance means forfeiting companionship on our terms." The words poured out. Anger, fear, defiance tangled together. "I'm asking you to see Pip not as a rule violation, but as a bridge. Between isolation and connection, between existing and living, between residents you manage and people you serve." I set down the pen. 90 seconds. Mrs. Alvarez knocked softly. "How's it going?" "I don't know if this is good enough." She read over my shoulder. "It's perfect. I've never done anything like this." "None of us have," she smiled. "That's why it'll work." The conference room felt smaller than it was, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, windows sealed shut against fresh air. Ms. Brennan sat at the head of the table, flanked by head nurse Karen and 2 board members I'd never met. One wore a navy suit that screamed lawyer. The other kept checking her watch. 12 residents lined the walls. Mrs. Alvarez beside me, Mr. Chen with his folder of documentation. Mrs. Patterson gripped her cane. Mr. Rodriguez stood straight despite his walker. We looked like what we were, old, fragile, easily dismissed. Ms. Brennan opened a leather portfolio. "Thank you for attending. This concerns Mrs. Walton's violation of facility pet policy." Violation? Like I'd committed a crime. "We've received your petition requesting policy review." Her tone suggested inconvenience. "However, regulations exist for resident safety. Allergies, sanitation, liability exposure." "May I speak?" My voice came out steadier than expected. She paused. Briefly, I stood, legs unsteady. Mrs. Alvarez touched my elbow. 3 months ago, I moved here because I couldn't manage alone anymore. David, my husband, died in March. 53 years together, then nothing. I met Ms. Brennan's eyes. Pip was the last piece of that life I could hold on to. The lawyer shifted. Mrs. Walton, we understand grief is difficult. I'm not finished. The words surprised me. I hid Pip initially because I was desperate, but something happened I didn't expect. Other residents noticed. They started leaving treats, notes. Mrs. Patterson mentioned Pip sat with her when she couldn't remember her daughter's name. Mrs. Patterson nodded. He stayed the whole afternoon. Mr. Rodriguez's grandson learned gentleness petting him. Miss Huang says her room feels less empty knowing Pip's down the hall. I pulled out my notes. Pip hasn't caused one incident. No allergic reactions. I checked with nursing. No sanitation issues. I clean meticulously. No bites, barking complaints, or property damage. Nurse Karen frowned. Policy doesn't account for individual cases. Then maybe policy needs updating. Mrs. Alvarez stood. Emotional support animals are recognized medically. Margaret's doctor provided documentation. Mr. Chen passed forward a folder. Physician's letter, vaccination records, behavioral certification, liability insurance, Margaret purchased independently. Ms. Brennan flipped pages, expression unreadable. Furthermore, Mr. Chen continued, I've documented 14 instances where Pip's presence correlated with improved resident engagement. Meal attendance up 12% on days Margaret brings him to dining. Social hours see higher participation. The board member, checking her watch, looked up. You tracked this? Daily logs, cross-referenced with facility records. He produced spreadsheets. Staff can verify. Nurse Karen shifted uncomfortably. There were no formal complaints, but were there informal complaints? Mrs. Alvarez asked. Silence. Several staff mentioned positive observations, Mr. Chen said quietly. Dietary aide Rachel noted Mrs. Kim eating better when Pip visits. Night aide Jamie said residents sleep easier. I hadn't known that. Ms. Brennan set down the folder. This is highly irregular. So is grief, I said. So is moving here knowing you're giving up independence. We follow your rules, medication schedules, meal times, visiting hours. We adapt to institutional life because we need care. My throat tightened. But needing help shouldn't mean surrendering everything that makes life worth living. Mrs. Patterson tapped her cane. I was a teacher 42 years. Retired, buried my husband, moved here. Felt invisible until Margaret's dog reminded me I still matter to someone. Mr. Rodriguez stepped forward. I coached Little League, had purpose. Now I sit in my room watching TV unless Pip visits. One by one, residents spoke. Brief, honest, devastating. Miss Huang barely whispered. I was going to ask my daughter to move me. Then Margaret walked Pip past my door every morning. Someone cared I existed. The lawyer made notes. The other board member stopped checking her watch. Ms. Brennan's expression remained neutral, but her hands stilled. Policy exists for protection, she finally said. Liability concerns are real. So are we, Mrs. Alvarez replied. The room held its breath. Ms. Brennan glanced at the door. We've heard from residents. Staff perspective matters equally. Nurse Karen nodded, likely expecting support. The door opened. Jamie, the night aide, stepped inside. Young, barely 30, perpetually exhausted from double shifts. She hesitated at the threshold. You wanted to add something? Ms. Brennan asked. Jamie twisted her hands. I work 11 to 7. See residents when they can't sleep, when nightmares wake them, when loneliness gets heavy. She looked at me. Mrs. Walton walks Pip around 3 a.m. most nights. I've watched her stop at Mr. Harrison's door because she hears him pacing, lets him pet Pip through the cracked door until he calms down. I hadn't realized anyone noticed those walks. Mrs. Kim wanders sometimes. Dementia, Jamie continued. Last week she got disoriented near the stairs. Dangerous. But Pip sat down and wouldn't move. Just blocked her path gently until I arrived. He's better than our alarm system. Nurse Karen frowned. That wasn't documented. Because I didn't want Margaret penalized, Jamie's voice firmed. But we're talking safety. That dog prevented a fall that could have been catastrophic. The lawyer scribbled notes. Marcus, the maintenance supervisor, entered next. 50-something, quiet, always fixing thing residents broke without complaint. You asked about sanitation, he said. I clean these floors daily. Margaret's room is immaculate, vacuumed twice daily, surfaces wiped, no odor, no damage. I've seen worse from residents without pets. Food spills, incontinence incidents, hoarding. He shrugged. Pip's cleaner than most humans. Ms. Brennan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Rachel, the dietary aide Mr. Chen mentioned, appeared. 26, studying to be a nurse, always patient during difficult mealtimes. Dining room morale shifted when Pip started visiting, she said. Residents who ate alone started sitting together. Conversations increased. Mrs. Patterson smiled for the first time since I've worked here. She glanced at the board member. Isolation kills people our age, right? Anything that builds connection should matter. Another nurse stepped forward. Diane, mid-40s, senior staff. Nurse Karen's expression tightened. I was skeptical initially, Diane admitted. Thought rules existed for good reason, but I've watched Margaret navigate this with more care than some trained professionals show. She checks with residents about allergies before entering common spaces. Wipes Pip's paws after outdoor walks. Keeps vaccination records updated voluntarily. She paused. She's demonstrated more responsibility than policy requires. Do you ever realize people see you clearer than you see yourself? I'd just been surviving, walking Pip, keeping routines, trying not to fall apart. I hadn't known these small actions registered. Mrs. Alvarez squeezed my hand. Marcus spoke again. Staff break room talk changed too. Used to be complaints, resident better, demands, paperwork, exhaustion. Now people mention Pip brightening someone's day. Sounds small, but morale matters when you're underpaid and overworked. Ms. Brennan set down her pen. You're suggesting a pet improved workplace culture? I'm saying Margaret did, Marcus corrected. Pip's just part of how she built community here. She learns names, staff, and residents, asks about our families, notices when someone's struggling. He looked at me. That's leadership. Quiet, consistent, respectful. My throat tightened. I'd never thought of it that way. The lawyer leaned toward Ms. Brennan, whispering. The other board member nodded slowly. Nurse Karen sat rigid, clearly unhappy with staff testimony contradicting her position. Ms. Brennan surveyed the room. Residents lining walls, staff clustered near the door, all waiting. This is unprecedented, she said finally. So is what Margaret's accomplished, Mr. Chen replied. Ms. Brennan straightened the papers before her, organizing them into a neat stack. The room held its breath. Residents frozen mid-gesture, staff watching from the doorway, even Pip, motionless in my lap. "I've reviewed the testimonials," she began, voice measured, "observed the documented evidence, listened to perspectives from multiple stakeholders." She glanced at the lawyer, who gave a slight nod. "Willow Gardens operates under regulatory frameworks designed to protect resident safety and institutional liability." My stomach dropped. This was the wind-up before the blow. "However," Ms. Brennan continued, "those frameworks also mandate resident quality of life, emotional well-being, and individualized care plans." Mrs. Alvarez's fingers tightened around mine. "The evidence presented demonstrates that PIP's presence has contributed positively to community morale, individual resident wellness, and, unexpectedly, staff satisfaction." She looked directly at me. "Mrs. Walton, you've operated outside formal channels, which created risk, but you've also maintained standards that many wouldn't have matched." I couldn't read her expression yet. Neutral, professional, giving nothing away. "The board recognizes that rigid policy application can undermine the compassionate care we claim to provide." She paused. "Therefore, we're authorizing a pilot program permitting PIP to remain, contingent on specific guidelines." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers. Mr. Chen's quiet, "Yes." I sat stunned, barely processing her words. Stay. PIP could stay. Ms. Brennan raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "The guidelines are non-negotiable. First, PIP must pass a behavioral assessment by a certified therapy animal evaluator within 2 weeks. Second, vaccination records and veterinary health checks must be submitted quarterly. Third, Margaret assumes full liability for any incidents, documented in writing." I nodded quickly. "Of course." Fourth, designated pet-free zones must be respected. The medical wing, kitchens, and any resident's room where allergies or phobias are documented. Fifth, this arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months to assess ongoing suitability. "I'll follow every rule," I said, voice shaking. "I promise." The lawyer added, "We'll draft a formal agreement outlining responsibilities, insurance requirements, and termination conditions. Both parties will sign." Ms. Brennan's gaze swept the room. "This decision reflects the evidence presented today. Resident unity, staff support, and demonstrated care standards. It's not a blanket endorsement of rule-breaking. It's recognition that policies should serve people, not constrain them unnecessarily." Nurse Karen's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. The other board member spoke for the first time. "We'll also form a resident council to address future concerns collaboratively. No one should feel unheard again." Mrs. Patterson started clapping, slow, deliberate. Others joined until the small dining hall filled with applause. Not wild, not loud, but steady and sure. I looked down at Pip, who licked my hand as if he understood. Maybe he did. Mr. Chen stood. "Ms. Brennan, the residents appreciate this decision. It demonstrates the institution's capacity for growth." She almost smiled. "Credit belongs to Mrs. Walton and everyone who spoke today. You reminded us why we do this work." Jamie wiped her eyes. Marcus grinned. Even Diane looked relieved. Ms. Brennan gathered her materials. "Meeting adjourned. Mrs. Walton, my office tomorrow at 10 to finalize paperwork." "I'll be there." My voice barely worked. As she exited with the lawyer and board member, residents surrounded me, careful not to crowd, just close enough to share the moment. Mrs. Alvarez kissed my cheek. "You did it." "We did it," I corrected. Mr. Chen adjusted his glasses. "Collective action yields results." Mrs. Kim reached down to stroke Pip's ears, her smile radiant despite the confusion dementia often brought. Pip leaned into her touch, tail wagging gently. This moment, surrounded by people who'd become family, holding the dog who'd kept me tethered through grief, felt like surfacing after drowning. I could breathe again. The morning after the decision, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and Pip's warm weight against my side. For the first time since Harold died, I didn't reach for him in those foggy seconds between sleep and waking. I reached for Pip instead, and that felt okay. We'd won, really won. I sat up slowly, joints protesting as they always did, and looked around my room. Same pale walls, same institutional furniture, same view of the courtyard, but everything felt different. Lighter somehow, like someone had opened windows I hadn't known were closed. Pip stretched, yawning wide, then hopped down to wait by the door. Our morning routine. But when I opened it, I found a note slipped underneath. Mrs. Alvarez's looping handwriting. Breakfast together, common room, 8 o'clock. You're buying. Kidding, it's all included. I smiled. Yeah, everything felt different. The common room buzzed with quiet energy when Pip and I arrived. Not chaos, we were too old for chaos, but purposeful movement. Mrs. Patterson rearranged chairs into a loose circle. Mr. Chen set up a small folding table. Jamie wheeled Mrs. Kim over, both of them grinning. Morning meeting, Mrs. Alvarez announced, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. First official gathering of the Willow Gardens Resident Council. We're calling it that, I asked. Got a better name? She handed me a cup. Black, 2 sugars, exactly how I liked it. I didn't. We settled into chairs, Pip making his rounds to greet everyone. Mrs. Kim scratched behind his ears. Mr. Edwards, who usually kept to himself, offered a hesitant pat. Even Mrs. Patterson, who'd been skeptical at first, let him sniff her hand. So, Mr. Chen said, pulling out his ever-present notebook. Agenda items. First, we need to formalize communication channels with administration. Second, we should establish regular meeting times. Third, Mrs. Alvarez interrupted. We celebrate. We won something important yesterday. Mr. Chen's mouth twitched, his version of a smile. Noted. Celebration added to agenda. Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding a box. Heard you folks were gathering. Brought donuts. He set them on the table. On me? You're not supposed to encourage sugar consumption, Jamie teased. I'm encouraging morale. He selected a glazed one. Big difference. We talked for an hour, maybe longer. Not about grand plans or dramatic changes, but small things. Better lighting in the hallways, more varied lunch options, a book club Mrs. Patterson wanted to start. Practical stuff that mattered to daily life. And Pip moved between us, offering comfort where it was needed, warmth where it was wanted. I watched these people, my people now, and thought about Harold. How he'd always said the best communities weren't built on grand gestures, but on showing up, day after day, for the ordinary moments. He would have liked this, liked them. That old ache flared, the one that lived beneath my ribs. But it didn't flatten me. I could hold the grief and the gratitude at the same time, let them exist together without choosing between them. Margaret? Mrs. Alvarez touched my arm gently. You okay? Yeah. I blinked back the wetness in my eyes. Just thinking. About? How I almost left. That first week, I had my daughter's number pulled up, ready to ask for a ride anywhere else. I looked around the circle. I would have missed all this. Mr. Chen nodded. Statistical probability suggests we would have missed you too. Mrs. Patterson laughed. That's Chen speak for we're glad you stayed. I know, I said. Me too. Pip settled at my feet, chin resting on my shoe. Outside, winter light caught the frost on the courtyard trees, making everything sparkle. Inside, coffee cooled in chipped mugs and donut crumbs scattered across the table, and people who'd been strangers 8 weeks ago planned a future together. Not a dramatic future, not a revolutionary one, just a better one, built on trust and small acts of courage.